Hello, I'm Simon Whistler. You are watching TopTenzNet, and in the video today, we're going to look at the 10 deadliest attempts to break a world record. Some world records are harmless, while others are downright dangerous. In fact, the Guinness Book of World Records doesn't even encourage people to compete for the dangerous records. With that being said, there are plenty of potentially deadly records out there waiting to be broken, and in this video, we're going to be looking at some of them. Let's get started.
The top 10 deadliest attempts to break a world record. Number 10. Lowell Bayles. The most dangerous records of all involve speed. Due to the amount of things that could go wrong, they make them both exciting and incredibly deadly. One of the earliest deaths in the race to become the fastest person on Earth was Lowell Bayles. Bayles was originally a mine engineer before he started taking flight lessons from a former World War I pilot instructor. Eventually, Bayles became a stunt pilot with a team who performed across the country. At the 1931 National Air Races, he tried to break the speed record by going 300 miles per hour, 482 kilometers per hour, which would make him the fastest human in history. While flying 246 feet, 75 meters above the ground, Bayles achieved just that. In a freak accident, the fuel cap came loose, flew through the windshield, and struck Bayles in the head, knocking him out. After losing control of the plane, it crashed into a flame ball, and Bayles was thrown 300 feet from the plane. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Number 9. Bert Hinkler. Bert, the Australian lone eagle, Hinkler was an aviator and inventor. During World War I, he worked as a gunner and observer for the Royal Navy Air Service. He invented many small gadgets that were used in planes up until the Second World War. He was one of the pioneers in flight and manufactured his own planes. He was one of the first people to fly solo from Australia to England and the first person to fly solo across the southern Atlantic Ocean. On January 7th, 1933, at the age of 40, Hinkler took off from the London Air Park, Hanworth, England, heading towards Australia to beat the current time of 8 days and 20 hours. Later that same day, Hinkler's plane crashed in the Tuscan mountains in Italy. After his body was recovered, he was given a full military burial on the orders of Benito Mussolini. Number 8. Sailendra Nath Roy. Sailendra Nath Roy was an Indian stuntman who held 2 bizarre Guinness World Records, both involving his hair. He managed to pull a locomotive with his ponytail for 8.2 feet, 2.5 meters, and he also rode a zipline 270.6 feet, 82.5 meters, by using his hair. On April 28, 2013, Roy was attempting to break his own zipline record on a 595.5 foot, 180 meter line. About 300 feet, 91 meters into the stunt, his hair became stuck for 30 minutes, after which he stopped moving. After hanging for 45 minutes, he was finally taken down. Roy had had a massive heart attack and was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital. Number 7. Javad Palizbanian. One of the most famous long-distance jumps on a motorcycle was Evel Knievel jumping over 14 buses in 1975 for a distance of 133 feet, which is 40 meters. It set the record for the longest distance jumped, and also the most buses jumped over. Bubba Blackwell broke the record jumping over 15 buses in 1999. That brings us to 44-year-old Iranian Javad Palizbani, who was trying to break the record by jumping over 22 buses parked next to each other. The distance would have been about 209 feet or 63 meters. While being broadcast on live television from the Azadi Sports Stadium in Tehran on August 28, 2005, Palizbanian said, "I'm going to do something for my country to be proud of." He then slammed into the 13th bus and died on impact. Number 6. Brigitte Lenoir. A rebreather is a piece of scuba equipment that recirculates air, removing the carbon dioxide and giving the wearer clean oxygen. Rebreather deep diving is the idea to dive as deep as possible while wearing a rebreather and surface without dying. 42-year-old Brigitte Lenoir from Valais, Switzerland, was rebreather diving in Dahab, Red Sea, Egypt. She was trying to beat her own record of 505 feet or 154 meters. Her goal for her dive on May 16, 2010 was 656 feet or 200 meters. Unfortunately, at 482 feet, 147 meters, something went wrong. This was despite the fact that there were many safety precautions, including oxygen tanks on a cable which Lenoir could access, and a team of experts helping her. The most likely culprit was a faulty valve in the pure oxygen tank, which causes pure oxygen poisoning. The only good news is that deaths like hers are almost immediate. Number 5. Bill Warner. 44-year-old Bill Warner was a tropical fish farmer from Wimauma, Florida. He held the world land speed record on a conventional motorcycle at 1.5 miles, which was 311 miles per hour, which is 500.49 kilometers per hour. He achieved this record on the 17th of July 2011 at the Loring Timing Association's Land Speed Races, which is held annually in Limestone, Maine. Warner came to the 2013 Loring Timing Association's Land Speed Races to break the land speed record on a conventional motorcycle at 1 mile distance. On July the 13th, Warner accomplished that record, hitting a speed of 296 miles per hour, or 476 kilometers per hour. The next day, he tried to break his own brand new record by reaching 300 miles per hour, 482 kilometers per hour. But after hitting the 285 mile per hour mark, 459 kilometers per hour, he lost control of his bike, veered to the right, and slid for 100 feet. He was conscious and talking when he was taken to the hospital, but he died an hour later. Number 4. Jessica Dubroff. Jessica Dubroff was a 7-year-old pilot trainee who, at the behest of her father, attempted to become the youngest person to pilot a plane across the United States. She called her coast-to-coast flight Sea to Shining Sea. The cute girl with big ambition was an instant media sensation. Since she was too young to officially hold a pilot's license, a rated pilot had to be at the controls at all time while Dubroff flew the plane. On April 10, 1996, Dubroff, her flight instructor Joe Reed, and her father Lloyd Dubroff took off in Reed's Cessna 177B from Half Moon Bay, California. Their ultimate goal was to reach Cape Cod, Massachusetts. After 24 hours, they landed in Cheyenne, Wyoming, for a rest. The next morning, the trio tried to take off in bad weather. The plane flipped and veered to the right, landing on a residential street and killing all 3 passengers. An investigation into the crash showed that Reed was in control of the plane when it crashed. Number 3. Pyotr Dolgov. In 1962, at the height of the Cold War and the start of the space race, 2 Russians were attempting to break the world record for longest freefall. Their method was to use a Volga balloon, which is a pressurized gondola that looks like a Christmas tree bulb with a hot air balloon attached to it. Dolgov, a colonel in the Soviet Union Air Force, and Yevgeny Nikolaevich Andreev, also a colonel, boarded the balloon in November 1961. Andreev jumped from 24,500 meters, which is 80,380 feet. Dolgov stayed in the gondola a little bit longer because he was testing a new pressure suit. He jumped to 28,640 meters, 93,970 foot, but cracked his visor and his suit depressurized. Andreev claimed the record of 24,500 meters, which wasn't beaten until Felix Baumgartner on October 12, 2012, who fell from a height of 39 miles, 62.76 kilometers above the Earth. Number 2. Nick Piantanida. Not to be outdone by the commies, the Americans decided to step up the free-falling game. Nick Piantanida was selling pets when he discovered skydiving, which led to him going on hundreds of jumps. After learning the Soviets had the record for the longest freefall, Piantanida decided this was a record he had to beat. While Piantanida was an experienced jumper, he was not a professional, nor was he in the Air Force. Usually the people who perform such feats are members of the Air Force. Regardless, Piantanida was able to get funding from sponsors. He was even granted permission to use the Air Force's training facilities, and they lent him a pressurized suit. On Piantanida's first attempt, high winds tore the roof off his gondola, Strato Jump 1, forcing him to jump at 16,000 feet, 4,900 meters, before parachuting into St. Paul, Minnesota City Dump. On February 2, 1966, on his second attempt using Strato Jump 2, he reached 123,500 feet, flying higher than anyone prior to him. However, he could not detach his oxygen hose and had to detach the balloon from the gondola. According to Fédération Aéronautique Internationale, since he returned to Earth without the balloon, he didn't get the official record. Also, since he didn't jump, he didn't get the parachute record either. On his third attempt, on the 1st of May 1966, at the 57,000-foot, 17,373-meter mark, his suit depressurized. The control room immediately released the parachute on the gondola. Piantanida was alive when the gondola reached the Earth, but the lack of oxygen caused him to go into a coma, and he died 14 months after. Number 1. Donald Campbell. Donald Campbell was a British land speed and water speed record holder. In fact, he is the only person to ever break both records in 1 year. Campbell's father, Sir Malcolm Campbell, was famous for his water speed records. When Malcolm passed away from a series of strokes, he was still the fastest man on water. Campbell carried on the tradition using his father's boat, the Bluebird. Campbell eventually reached a record speed of 276.33 miles per hour, 444.71 kilometers per hour, on the 31st of December 1964. After conquering the water, Campbell wanted to get the land speed record, which was 394 miles per hour, or 634 kilometers per hour. To accomplish this, Campbell built Bluebird CN7, a car with a turbine engine. He then achieved the record, reaching speeds of 403.1 miles per hour, which is 648.73 kilometers per hour. Campbell decided that progress needed to move quickly, so he started designing a car that could break the Mach barrier. He designed the Bluebird Mach 1.1, which was supposed to go faster than the speed of sound, 767 miles per hour, which is 1,234 kilometers per hour. Using a rocket, the Bluebird Mach 1.1 was supposed to reach 840 miles per hour, which is 1,350 kilometers per hour. In order to raise publicity for his Bluebird Mach 1.1 run, Campbell decided to break the water speed record. On the 4th of January 1967, Campbell took his first attempt to reach 300 miles per hour, 483 kilometers per hour, but he fell short, hitting an average of 297.6 miles per hour, 479 kilometers per hour. Instead of refueling, Campbell decided to try it again. On his second attempt, he did a somersault in the air before crashing back into the water, which killed him. After his death, Campbell's design for the Bluebird Mach 1.1 was scrapped. No one reached the 300 miles per hour on water mark until 1978, and the sound barrier wasn't broken on land until 1997.
So I hope you enjoyed that video about deadly records. If you did, click subscribe below me now. You'll get brand new videos just like this, 7 days a week, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, if you did like this video, please do click like. And because you watched this records video all the way to the end, maybe you'll be interested in a couple of our other videos about records. Over there, I've got the top 10 buildings that are constructed in record time, and also the top 10 unsexiest records that are based around sex. And that one's maybe not such an enjoyable one, but sure is fascinating. Thanks for watching.